The wind howled across the barren plains, carrying with it the sharp scent of rain and dust. The old ranch house stood alone against the black horizon, its lantern light flickering in the storm like a heartbeat refusing to die. Inside, a man moved through the dim kitchen with a child pressed to his chest, his shirt soaked with tears that weren't just the baby's. Ethan Cole had not slept in 3 days. The funeral still played on a loop in his mind. The small wooden box, the scent of lilies, the preacher's trembling voice as he said, "She rests now," but she didn't rest in his heart. His wife, Clara, had been gone only a week, taken by a fever that came fast and left destruction behind. Now the house that once rang with laughter was filled with silence and the soft, pitiful cry of their 6-month-old daughter, Lily. He bounced her gently, whispering, "Shh, little one, I'm here," but his voice cracked under the weight of exhaustion. The fire was dying, the baby's formula was nearly gone, and the nearest town was 20 miles of mud and darkness away. Then a sound broke through the storm, a knock. 3 sharp raps on the front door. Ethan froze. No one came out here this late. No one dared cross those flooded roads. The only light was the flickering lamp by the window, and when he turned toward it, the baby whimpered again, pressing her face against his chest. The knock came again, harder this time. With one hand, Ethan reached for the shotgun by the doorframe. He balanced the baby on his arm, cautious as a shadow. "Who's there?" He called, his voice gravelly. A woman's voice answered, trembling but firm. Please, I'm sorry to disturb you. I saw the light. I'm looking for work." Ethan hesitated. Work at midnight? He opened the door just enough to see the figure on the porch. Rain streamed down her hair and coat, and her eyes, green as the prairie after rain, met his for only a second before darting to the baby. "I can help," she said softly, shivering. "I used to care for children." "Please, sir, I don't have anywhere else to go." Ethan studied her through the narrow opening. Her face was pale, her lips trembling from cold, but there was something in her tone, something desperate and honest, the kind of voice that didn't lie. He could have shut the door, should have. But Lily let out a cry that pierced him to the core, and without another thought he stepped aside. "Get in," he said gruffly. The woman entered, dripping rainwater onto the floorboards. She glanced around, taking in the sparse room, the half-clean bottles, the wood stove glowing low. "I'm sorry," she murmured again. "I didn't mean to intrude." "Name?" Ethan asked. "Grace," she whispered. "Grace Miller." He nodded once, not ready for conversation. "You said you need work. What kind?" "Anything," she said quickly. "Housekeeping, cooking, cleaning, caring for the baby. I can do it all. She hesitated, her voice faltering. "I just need a place to stay for a few nights." Ethan's gaze fell to the baby in his arms. Lily's crying had softened, her tiny hand clutching his shirt. He was too tired to think clearly. "Fine," he said after a long pause. "You can stay in the spare room. But this isn't charity. You'll work for it." "Yes, sir," Grace said, relief flooding her face. He turned to tend the fire, and as he did, she stepped closer to the crib and gently took Lily from his arms. Ethan almost protested, but then, for the first time in days, Lily stopped crying. Grace held her like she'd known her all her life, humming something low and sweet. The baby cooed, eyes fluttering. Ethan felt a strange ache rise in his chest, a mixture of grief and something he didn't want to name. When the fire burned bright again, he looked at Grace. Her wet hair clung to her face, but her expression was calm now. The storm still roared outside, but inside the house, the air had shifted, warm, alive, uncertain. He didn't know then that her arrival would change everything, that her knock wasn't just the sound of a woman seeking shelter, but destiny itself, asking to be let in. Morning came quietly, wrapped in mist. The storm had passed, leaving behind a silver fog that clung to the valley. The ranch was still, except for the soft hum of wind and the distant lowing of cattle. Grace awoke before dawn. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. The faint scent of smoke and cedar, the rough wool blanket, the sound of a baby's soft breathing from the next room, it all came rushing back. She sat up slowly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her clothes were clean but still damp at the cuffs. Ethan had given her a small room at the end of the hall, barely larger than a closet. Yet to her it felt like sanctuary. After weeks of walking, hiding and praying, she finally had a roof over her head. She slipped quietly into the kitchen, lit the fire, and began making coffee. The silence of the ranch was heavy but peaceful. When she turned, she saw a small figure in the doorway. Ethan. Still half asleep, Lily nestled in the crook of his arm. His hair was tousled, his jaw shadowed with stubble. But there was something gentler in his eyes now. "You're up early," he said. "I couldn't sleep," Grace replied. "A habit of mine." He nodded toward the pot. "You found the coffee. I hope you don't mind." "Not at all. Smells better than I make it." Grace smiled faintly. "That's not a high bar, I'm guessing." Ethan almost laughed, almost. "You guess right." He set Lily in her cradle, then rubbed his eyes. "You worked hard last night. I owe you thanks." "You don't owe me anything," Grace said quickly. "You gave me a place to stay." He studied her. There was a steadiness in her voice that didn't match her fragile frame. "You said you used to care for children," he said. "Where was that?" Her hands stilled on the counter. "Different places," she murmured. "Mostly for families passing through. I've moved around a lot."